It's often said that the smallest things can make the biggest difference. For Elara Vance, a passionate baker in the small coastal town of Havenwood, one small act of kindness changed her life forever. One stormy night in Havenwood, as the waves crash against the shore, Elara, an employee of the Sweet Surrender Bakery, makes a bold decision. She opens her shop to a drenched stranger, unaware that he is the town's most successful and prominent businessman, Julian Thorne. Little does she know that this action will set off a chain of miraculous events that will transform not only her life but the entire Havenwood community. Elara's legs were aching as she cleaned the counter at Sweet Surrender. The clock on the wall read 11:45 p.m., just 15 minutes until closing. After a long day at work, all she wanted to do was go home and rest. But she kept going, because she had a dream. "Mom, can I take piano lessons this summer?" Her 10-year-old daughter, Lily, asked that morning, her blue eyes sparkling with hope. "My teacher says I have a special gift." Piano lessons cost $300. For Elara, a single mother, that was a lot of money. But she knew that music was Lily's passion, and she wanted her daughter to have the opportunity to pursue her dream. The bell above the shop chimed, pulling Elara from her thoughts. She turned to tell the customer they were closing, but the words caught in her throat. A tall, drenched man, his wool hat pulled down low, entered. Even crouched, he was over 6 feet tall. Her boss, Mr. Harrison, has a strict rule: no service after 11:30 p.m., no exceptions. But there was something in the man's tired blue-gray eyes that made her hesitate. "Come in," she said, taking the menu. "What would you like to have?" The man smiled, gratitude lighting up his face. "Thank you," he said in a deep voice. "All I needed was a warm place to shelter from the rain and a hot cup of tea." Elara led him to a table by the window, overlooking the choppy sea. She noticed the way he kept his head bowed, as if trying to hide something. "How can I help you?" she asked. "Chamomile tea," he said. "And a piece of apple pie if you have it. Our apple pies are the most famous in Havenwood," she said with a smile. "My daughter says they're the best in the world." The man chuckled, a warm and familiar sound. "Sounds perfect. You have kids?" "A daughter, Lily. She's 10 and loves music," Elara said proudly. "Wants to be a famous pianist one day." "Sweet dreams," the man nodded in response. As she turned back to prepare tea and cakes, a flash of lightning lit up his face. She saw his face more clearly, the face of a man who had been groomed, his eyes filled with sadness. But she kept her face calm. She pretended not to notice. Through the kitchen window, she saw Mr. Martin cleaning. "One last dish for tonight, Mr. Martin," she said. "A special customer." Mr. Martin grimaced but nodded. He had never refused Elara's requests. Mr. Martin was a kind and listening colleague. He had known about Elara's plight for a long time, and his empathy for her grew deeper and deeper. Whenever Elara was going through a stressful or tiring time, he would find a way to help, sometimes just with a word of comfort or encouragement. While the tea and cakes were being prepared, Elara wiped down the table and counted the tip. $57, not a small amount for her. The man ate quietly, sipping his tea and watching the rain. Despite his cold appearance, he had a warm presence that made Elara feel comfortable. When he finished eating, he waved her over. "Your apple pie is wonderful," he said. "It's the best pie I've had in a long time." He pulled out his wallet before she could say the total. He placed a few bills on the table. "Keep the change," he said, standing up. "And thank you for your kindness. It means more than you think." Elara waited until he left to count the tip. $300, just enough for Lily's piano lesson. She locked up the shop at 12:30 a.m., the fatigue fading. Sometimes breaking the rules was worth it, especially when it brought joy to others. What she didn't know was that her act of kindness would not go unnoticed. And tomorrow, a sudden decision would change her life forever. The next morning, Elara's alarm clock went off at 6 a.m. She smiled, remembering the $300 tip. "Lily, it's breakfast time. "Honey," she called. Lily appeared, dressed in her piano outfit, playing a familiar tune. "Mom, guess what? The teacher said I can join the summer concert." Elara hugged her daughter tightly. "That's great. And guess what? You can take piano lessons this summer." "Really? But yesterday Mom said." Let's say a kind customer left a generous tip. Their morning passed quickly, but when Elara arrived at the bakery, Mr. Harrison was waiting. His face was stern and angry, his arms crossed. "You're fired." Elara's stomach clenched. "What? Why?" "She served a customer after closing. I reviewed the camera." "But the law is the law," my father shouted, his tone not allowing her the chance to explain or justify her actions. "But you also used too. And last night's customer was Julian Thorne." The words were out before she could stop them. Mr. Harrison's face fell, showing his indignation. She looked down at the ground, tears welling up in her eyes. She tried to imagine Lily, her innocent, carefree eyes and bright smile, if she could give up her image to give her daughter a better life. But now, she didn't know what to do to support both mother and daughter. Other jobs might not be feasible, and with her current financial situation, she couldn't give herself the right to choose. She took a deep breath, trying to shake off her disappointment, and raised her head again, determined not to let Mr. Harrison see her weak. She knew that no matter what happened, she would have to continue to find a new path, for Lily. Even if the current darkness might last, she was sure that the light would appear again, at least in her and her mother's hearts. Just then, Elara's phone rang. "Hello? Ms. Vance, this is Sarah from the CTB Charitable Trust. Mr. Thorne wants to see you." Elara's heart pounded. "May I ask what this is about?" "Mr. Thorne will explain everything in person. Can you come here in 30 minutes? She thought about Lily's dream. About last night's decision. About Mr. Harrison's strictness. "Yes," she said firmly. "I will be there." Sitting on the bus, her heart still heavy and disappointed, she thought of Mr. Harrison's words, making her heart ache. Tears still rolled down her cheeks. As she entered the luxurious office building, she felt nervous. Julian Thorne smiled at her. "You recognize me?" Thorne said. "Elara, last night was no accident. I've been watching your bakery for weeks, watching you." She held her breath. "Watching me?" Elara wondered. "Why me?" "Because she treats everyone with kindness, no matter who they are. That's the kind of person I need for my foundation." He slid a business card across the table. "Director of Community Programs." Tears welled up in her eyes. "But I'm just a baker." "She's not just anything," Thorne said. "She's exactly what this fund needs." Elara looked at the picture of Lily on her phone. She thought of all the children who needed opportunities, just like her daughter. She picked up the business card, her decision was clear. She thought to herself, could this be a good sign from the universe? She had just been fired, so she had no other choice, she just needed money to support Lily. "I would be honored to accept. Then help me come up with a plan to create a charity fund." Elara sat at her desk, sunlight streaming in from the windows. She was busy writing a plan for an upcoming fundraising event. Suddenly, an idea popped into her head, the cake that pays for itself. The concept is simple, the cakes she makes will be sold at prices that customers decide for themselves. Her goal is not only to raise money for the foundation, but also to create a culture of kindness where people can respect the value of cake art while helping children in need. After finishing the plan, Elara showed it to Thorne. Read through the plan, he was very satisfied and agreed to let her implement it. When the announcement of the Pay Your Own Cake event was broadcast on social media and local media, Elara received a positive response from the community. People were eagerly awaiting the opportunity to taste her unique cakes. To further increase the appeal, she decided to hold a cake festival where people could come, enjoy and participate in the fundraising activities. On the day of the event, Elara prepared a rich array of cakes, from birthday cakes with soft cream to sweet sandwiches filled with fruit jam. Each cake had its own story, created with passion and creativity. As people arrived, Elara greeted them with a big smile and invited them to join in the pay your own price. You can pay any amount for the cake of your choice, with the understanding that all proceeds will be donated to the Children's Fund, she explained. Each cake is not just a meal, but a contribution to the future of a child in need. It was great. The festive atmosphere spread from the children to the adults. People started lining up to try Elara's delicious cakes. Many people chose to pay double or even triple the actual price of the cake. Elara felt that the customers seemed to be very satisfied with the cakes she made. They enjoyed the cakes and she kept receiving thanks from customers. An old lady in the neighborhood, holding a tiramisu cake, told Elara, "I can pay double this price, because not only is your cake delicious, but what you are doing is really meaningful." Receiving such touching words from customers, Elara feels happier than ever. By mid-afternoon, Elara and her team of volunteers had discovered something miraculous. The donations had far exceeded their expectations. Each cake was valued not only for its monetary value, but also as a priceless gift to children in need of a chance to change their lives. After the successful cake event, Thorn couldn't hide his satisfaction. He stood next to Elara, looking out at the sea of people enjoying cakes and laughing with each other, each smile a part of the joy that her creative idea radiated. "Elara, you did something I didn't think was possible." Everyone was involved and excited about the idea, Thorn said, his eyes full of pride and confidence. Elara felt her heart swell with happiness. She was able to help so many children go to school, and that image made her realize that what she was doing was not just uplifting the community but actually changing the lives of many children. She turned to Thorn, "We can't stop here. We need to open a shop called Pay Your Own Cakes to keep this idea alive and create a place where people can come regularly to support the fund." "That's a great idea," Thorn replied, his face serious but his eyes shining. "A store would help sustain and grow this movement. We could create a cozy space where people come not just to enjoy the cakes but to connect and share their stories." Gradually, Pay Your Own Price cakes became a symbol of sharing and kindness among the local people. Buyers not only paid for the cakes but also felt that they were contributing to bringing hope and a brighter future to less fortunate children. Elara stood at the bakery counter, seeing the smiles on everyone's faces and knowing that she was doing something meaningful. In that moment, she deeply felt that kindness and compassion could make the world a little better every day, starting with a simple cake. Since then, the self-paying bakery was born. The delicious taste of the bakery spread widely throughout the city, not only because of the delicious bread, but also the meaning of the bakery. Customers came more and more. Julian Thorn is a successful businessman, but his life is not a bed of roses. His busy business keeps him busy with important meetings and decisions. However, behind that cold and successful appearance is a broken heart. His wife, the woman he loves the most, passed away in a tragic traffic accident a few years ago, leaving him to raise his 12-year-old son, Alex, alone. Alex was a bright and intelligent boy, but after losing his mother, he became withdrawn and quieter. Julian always felt guilty for not spending enough time with his son. He knew that Alex needed a woman in his life, someone who could give him the love and warmth he was missing. In addition to running his company, Julian has always dreamed of establishing a charity to help disadvantaged children. He wants to use his success to bring hope and opportunity to those less fortunate. However, his business is too busy for him to set up and run an organized charity himself. He needs someone who is truly dedicated, responsible and trustworthy to help him realize this dream. And that is why Julian chose Elara. He had been following her for a long time, impressed by her kindness, sincerity and sense of responsibility. He found Elara to be a strong woman, always willing to help others without asking for anything in return. He believed that Elara was the person he was looking for, someone who could help him build and develop his charity. That stormy night, when Julian entered the bakery Sweet Surrender, he had the opportunity to observe Elara in a difficult situation. He saw her not hesitate to help a soaked stranger, even though it might violate the owner's rules. He realized that Elara was a woman with a good heart and was willing to do the right thing, even when no one was watching. After Elara was fired, Julian knew he needed to take action. He invited her to meet and offered her the position of community program director for his charity. He explained to Alara his dream and why he chose her. After working together on community projects, Julian began to feel drawn to Alara, not because of her charm, but because of the beauty of her work that he saw in her. He was impressed by her dedication to her work, as well as her leadership and creative thinking. He realized that he had developed special feelings for her. After a long day of work on an upcoming fundraising event, Alara was still busy with plans and guest lists. She wanted everything to be perfect. Julian, who was also busy with calls and emails, noticed that the light in Alara's room was still on. He decided to stop by to see if she needed any help. When Julian entered, he saw Alara with her head resting on the table, probably because she was too tired. He gently approached and took off the jacket he was wearing, draping it lightly around her shoulders, as if he was afraid of waking her up, but at that moment, Alara raised her head, unexpectedly meeting Julian's eyes. In that brief moment, both of them felt a strange vibration, an indescribable connection. A strange silence. Only the two breathing sounds from Julian and Alara's chests could be heard. Alara quickly stood up, feeling a little embarrassed at being caught in that state. Julian smiled, trying to break the awkward atmosphere. He asked Alara about her progress and offered to help her. The two worked together late into the night, sharing ideas and thoughts. In the quiet of the office, they felt closer than ever. The clock is now 12 o'clock at night. It's late, maybe I should take you home to rest so you can continue the project tomorrow. Because it's difficult for you to catch a bus now, there are no buses running at this time. Thank you, Alara said. In the silence of the car, Alara felt a chill run down her spine. She huddled into the seat, trying to shrink herself to ease the embarrassment that was spreading. Her eyes were glued to the street scene passing by the window, trying to find a place to hide from Julian's presence. Julian, on the other hand, felt a strange urge to look at Alara. He noticed her confusion and felt an urge to break the tension. But he didn't know where to start. He looked out the window, thinking about what he had experienced today. The atmosphere in the car became heavier, only the sound of the engine and the soft rain falling. Alara felt the urge to say something, but she didn't know what to say. She looked at Julian, noticing his pensive expression. She wondered what he was thinking. Julian turned to look at Alara, meeting her confused gaze. He smiled softly, trying to ease the tension. "Are you tired?" he asked. Alara nodded, feeling a pang of relief when Julian spoke up. "Yeah, a little," she said. "It's been a long day." "I understand," Julian said. "You've worked hard." Alara felt a warmth spread through her. She was grateful for Julian's concern. "Thank you," she said. "I'm glad we had a successful fundraiser." "That's all thanks to you," Julian said. "You did a great job." Julian broke the silence and asked, "You're home so late, your daughter must be very worried about you." "Yes, Lily must be waiting for me. She's very sensitive and always worries when I don't come home on time." "I see," Julian said in a deep voice. "Where is her father?" The question jolted Alara from her reverie. Her eyes grew distant, her soul lost in painful memories. "I raised Lily alone," she said, her voice soft. "Her father left us when Lily was very young." Julian was silent, but his gaze seemed to encourage Alara to continue. She took a deep breath, letting the memories sink in. "That summer, I thought I had found happiness. I thought he was the one who truly loved me, and when I found out the truth, it wasn't what I thought." She paused, trying to contain her emotions, but sadness still flowed through her voice. "I dreamed of a future with him, until I discovered that he was just taking advantage of my kindness. Instead of supporting me, he was secretly selfish, living his life without any responsibility." Alara looked down at her hands, which were clenched tightly, as if she were trying to push away all the painful memories. "When I told him I was pregnant, I hoped it would be a reason for us to start a family together. But his reaction was unbelievable. He didn't care about that, even abandoned me, to run away with a rich woman." Her voice cracked, emotions surging with each word. I felt like my whole world was falling apart. Someone I trusted had suddenly become the villain in my story. Julian listened, his eyes shining with understanding of the pain Alara was feeling. She continued, "The feeling of betrayal and abandonment not only made me lose faith in love, but also made me doubt myself. Was it because I was too easy, too trusting, that I allowed myself to suffer such pain? I felt like a failure." Alara's eyes were moist, but she didn't want to cry. "But Lily helped me get back up from that collapse. She was the only reason I kept going. I wanted to protect her from all the pain I went through. I couldn't let history repeat itself. I will try my best to give her a good life." Julian nodded, sympathy clear on his face. "You're stronger than many people think. It's not a defeat, it's a strength," he reassured. Alara smiled weakly, feeling a part of her heart begin to heal, even as the past still haunted her. Alara looked at Julian with a troubled look. She suddenly realized that although she had worked with him for a while, he was still as vague as fog. "What about you?" she asked, pressing. "We've been working together for a while, not too long, but not too short either. It's not like I know much about you, except that you're a successful businessman." Julian smiled slightly, but his eyes were serious. "So what do you think of me?" he asked back, making Alara think. She nodded, trying to organize her thoughts. "I find you to be decisive and visionary. When we work together, your ideas are always clear and convincing. You have the ability to inspire those around you. But at the same time, it seems, you also keep a certain distance from everyone." Julian nodded, as if he were absorbing her words. "That's all well and good," he replied, "but it's not entirely true. Yes, I'm a businessman, but I have a life outside of work that you may not know about." Hearing this, Alara felt a little curious. "From the first time I saw you at the bar that rainy night, I felt that there was something mysterious about you," she said. "It seemed like you were carrying some sadness inside you. Maybe that's why I had a hard time grasping your true self." Julian looked away from the window and straight at Alara, his gaze becoming calm. "Actually, I had a hard time too. But everyone has their own way of dealing with the past." He didn't say more, but decided to keep the deeper things to himself. "Do you have any plans for your future?" Julian asked, his smile gentle but profound. Alara hesitated, a little confused by the question. "Plans? I just thought that having a stable job, enough to support Lily's education, enough for her to develop what she is passionate about," she said, her voice confident but her heart felt uncertain. "So do you think Lily needs a father?" Julian's question echoed like a grain of sand quietly falling in the quiet space, making Alara confused. She looked out the window, the space seemed to sink into fragments of memories. I'm not sure about that," she replied, trying to gather her thoughts. "I haven't thought about that either." Her voice trailed off, but Julian's question made her heart flutter in an indescribable way, and she couldn't understand what she was feeling anymore. Julian sensed her unease. "Perhaps you've been so focused on Lily that you've forgotten that you need some happiness yourself," he said carefully. "A good family can provide a good environment for her, but that doesn't mean you have to give up on yourself." Alara's gaze became hazy. She felt like her heart was splitting in two. "I don't know, Julian. Maybe a father would be a good thing for Lily, but I don't want to take the risk again. I've been through a huge shock and don't know if I'm capable of opening up again." "It wasn't an easy decision," Julian said. "But no one said love was easy. Some people come into our lives as gifts, and sometimes that opens up new heavens." Alara felt Julian's words as a glimmer of light amidst the darkness in her soul. She had never really considered that aspect, that a man might re-enter their lives. But the painful wounds from the past engraved in her mind were like a barrier that was difficult to overcome. "But it was scary," she confessed, her voice softer now. "I don't know if I can trust anyone again, when I can't stop remembering what happened." Julian nodded slightly, knowing that no words could immediately ease that fear, only time and patience could. "Give yourself time, Alara. Every step, no matter how small, can lead you to a better place." Don't be afraid to open your heart, because beautiful things often come when we least expect them. Elara raised her head and looked into Julian's eyes. Although she still had many doubts, she secretly felt that his words were like a stepping stone, helping her gradually step out of the darkness of the past. The rain had stopped, and the remaining drops of water on the branches sparkled like tiny diamonds. They had been so engrossed in their conversation, discussing deep and emotional things, that they had forgotten how far they had come. Elara felt as if she had just gone through an interesting, yet tiring, inner journey. Finally, the car stopped in front of her house. She opened the door and got out. The smell of wet earth after the rain filled the air, bringing with it a sense of freshness. Julian also got out of the car. He turned around with a warm smile. "Thank you very much for the conversation today," he said, his voice low but sincere. Elara nodded, her heart still pounding. "Thank you for listening," she replied, feeling lighter. "It really helped me see things differently." Julian smiled slightly, his eyes shining as he looked into hers. "I hope you find what you're looking for. Never forget that you're not alone." Elara felt something warm and comforting in his words, and she smiled back, but the storm inside her still lingered. "I will try," she said, and then she turned and walked into the house. As the door closed, Julian paused for a second, feeling like this meeting was more than just a conversation between colleagues. Maybe there was a connection between them, a possibility that could change both of their lives. He listened to the raindrops on the eaves, letting his mind wander, wondering if he should turn back just to say one more word to Elara. At this moment, Lily was sleeping soundly on her small bed, her hair slightly messy from the pillow, looking very cute. On the desk, there was a piece of paper with a charming line, "My dear mother, I'm going to bed first, good night." Reading that message, Elara felt choked up and happy. Tears welled up in her eyes as she realized that despite the hardships in life, Lily had always brought her warm moments. She smiled warmly, leaned down to kiss her forehead gently, then gently touched her cheek, wanting to preserve something of this lovely moment. Then she gently closed the door, leaving Lily sleeping soundly. Back in her room, Elara threw herself onto the bed, but soon found herself tossing and turning, unable to sleep. Her thoughts were intertwined, Julian's questions echoing in her head. Did she really need to open up? Could someone really come into her life without causing more pain? Her emotions were indescribable, like a jumble of tangles in her heart. She thought about what Julian had said. He had listened not just with his ears but with his heart. Was he hinting at a future? Or was it just business as usual? Elara couldn't tell. Her heart was torn between the desire for connection and the fear of facing the past. Now that everything was quiet, Elara could hear the soft sound of rain falling outside, mixed with Lily's steady breathing. It made her feel at peace, but also highlighted the waves of emotions within her. Elara turned back to Lily's paper, rereading the words her daughter had written. "My dear mother," she thought to herself, "how can I give her a happy life if I can't find happiness myself?" She closed her eyes, and the image of Julian appeared in her mind, his warm smile and bright eyes. Perhaps it was not a sudden attack of love, but a guiding light in the darkness that she had been searching for. But was she ready to open her heart again? Amidst her thoughts, Elara sighed quietly, determined not to let her worries keep her from sleeping. She turned over, forcing herself to focus on her steady breathing, allowing herself to think about the unknown. There were new beginnings, things she could look at differently. Slowly, the people of the city fell asleep, but in Elara's heart, a new journey seemed to be beginning, a journey to find not only happiness for Lily, but for herself as well. The next morning, the gentle sunlight filtered through the curtains, waking Elara up with a positive feeling. She decided to make Lily her favorite pancakes with syrup and fresh fruit. She sneaked into the kitchen, skillfully mixing the dough and preparing the ingredients. The aroma of the pancakes frying filled the house, making her feel happy. When the cake was done and placed on a plate, Lily yawned and slowly walked out of the room, her eyes still sleepy but her gaze immediately lit up when she saw the steaming plate of cake. "What is it, Mom? It smells so good," Lily asked, her smile growing as she sat down at the table. "Mommy made you pancakes," Elara replied with a warm smile, pleased to see her daughter's eager face. We're going to have a great day today, honey. Yes, Mom. I like your cake the best. Lily exclaimed, her eyes never leaving the plate of cake. As they sat down to eat, Elara suddenly felt an urge. She asked softly, Lily, what do you think if you had a father? Her question surprised Lily. She stopped chewing and looked at her mother with wide eyes. After a moment of thought, Lily smiled and replied, I will be very happy. I will not be teased by my friends anymore. I just need a father who truly loves my mother and truly loves me. Elara was stunned by the girl's innocent yet meaningful answer. In that moment, she realized that Lily always thought of her mother, always wanted her mother to be happy. A wave of emotion surged through Elara's heart, it was both warm and bitter. She smiled lovingly, patted her daughter, and said, I am so proud of you, Lily. You are amazing. Now, Elara said softly, let's go, daughter, we're late for school. Mom has a lot of work to do at the company today too. After breakfast, mother and daughter quickly got ready to go out. Elara still felt the sun shining brightly in the sky, not only because of the beautiful weather but also because of what Lily had said. She returned to her daily routine, taking her child to school and then doing her work at the company. But in her heart, the thought of a family could gradually change, and the idea of a man in her life no longer scared her as much as before. She sat next to Lily on the bus as usual, but today there was a strange, fresh feeling growing inside her. She saw the bunches of wildflowers along the road, each flower exuding its own beauty. The feeling inside her became intense, that, like those flowers, her life could also bloom and shine if she dared to open her heart. Elara entered the office, past Julian's office. She did not forget to throw a gentle glance into the room. She saw him on the phone, turned to face the glass door, looking at his back. She suddenly felt warm in her heart. She quietly returned to her office. Sitting at her desk, her mind was wandering, Julian's figure always appearing in her mind. Suddenly her phone message popped up, startling her. Let's go out for lunch, I have something to discuss with you. She composed a message, give me the location, I will be there on time. When Elara arrived, a very cozy but not too crowded restaurant, she saw Julian sitting calmly reading the newspaper, as if he had been waiting for her for a long time. Sit down, you can order what you like. Julian said. I'm simple, no need to be fussy. Julian looked at her and gave her a warm smile, he knew she was shy. This restaurant has a very famous dish. And then they both waited for the food. During this time, Elara had so many questions in her head, wanting to ask him but not knowing where to start. Suddenly Julian spoke up, what happened in the car the other day, did she still remember? What do you mean? Elara spoke up. She asked about me. Oh, yes, but it seems you are not willing to share. Actually, I asked you out here to give you an answer. I have a son, a 12-year-old boy named Alex, and my wife, whom I loved very much. She died in a car accident 12 years ago. Elara's eyes widened, surprised at what he just said. She seemed shocked to hear about his past. He continued, once we went on a picnic in a valley about 200 kilometers from the city. On the way back, our car had a problem. In the dark, suddenly a truck rushed towards us, causing Alex's mother to be thrown to the side of the road. Alex and I were lucky to escape. She did not survive the collision. Elara said, I'm sorry for mentioning your unhappy story. It's okay, I should also tell you the truth, and myself. And most of all, I want Alex to have a mother who is tolerant enough and willing to love him. What do you think about this issue? Julian's straightforward question left her confused, not knowing how to answer. Suddenly the waiter brought the food, breaking the silence between the two. Delicious dishes were placed on the table, but neither Elara nor Julian paid much attention. They looked at each other, their eyes filled with many unspoken words. Julian smiled slightly, trying to lighten the tension. Maybe we should eat first, he said, his voice low. The food is getting cold. Elara nodded, trying to calm herself. She picked up her chopsticks, but her hands were shaking slightly. She couldn't focus on the food, Julian's words still echoing in her head. I don't know what to say, Julian, she said, her voice soft. I'm so sorry about what happened to your wife. Thank you, he said, his voice a little sad. It was a great loss, but I've learned to live with it. And Alex? How is he? She asked, her voice filled with concern. Alex is a wonderful boy, he said, his eyes lighting up. Smart, sensitive, but also very lonely. I want to give my son a complete family, a loving mother. He looked straight into Elara's eyes, his gaze filled with sincerity. I know this is a big ask, Elara. But I believe you are the woman I've been looking for. You have kindness, tolerance, and boundless love. I believe you will be a wonderful mother to Alex. Elara was silent, not knowing how to respond. She felt a strong stirring in her heart, an urge to love and protect Alex. But she was also afraid that she would not be able to meet Julian's expectations, afraid that she would hurt Alex. I need time to think, Julian, she said, her voice shaking. This is an important decision, I can't rush it. I understand, he said, taking her hand. I will wait for you, Elara. I trust you will make the right decision. Lunch ended in silence, both lost in their own thoughts. As they stood up to leave, Julian said, I will take you home. On the way home, no one spoke. Elara stared out the window, her thoughts in turmoil. She thought about Alex, about Julian, about her past and her future. As the car stopped in front of her house, Julian turned to look at her. I will await your answer, Elara, he said, his voice deep. Elara nodded, opened the car door and stepped out. She turned to look at Julian, smiling softly. Thank you, Julian. She walked into the house, feeling a sense of exhaustion wash over her. She knew she had to make an important decision, one that would change her life forever. That night, Elara couldn't sleep. She thought about Alex, about Julian, about what they had said. She wondered if she was brave enough to open herself up to new love, to a new family. Then she thought about Lily, about what her daughter had said. She remembered Lily's bright smile when she said she wanted a father. Maybe I should give myself a chance, she thought. Maybe I should give Alex a chance. She closed her eyes, feeling a sense of peace spread through her. She knew she had her answer. One late evening, Elara was still working in the office. She was trying to finish an important report for an upcoming fundraising event. The gentle rain outside the window created a quiet and cozy atmosphere. Suddenly, Julian entered the room. He carried 2 cups of hot tea and a plate of cookies. You're working late, he said, his voice low. You need to rest. Thank you, Elara said, smiling. I'm almost done. Let me help you, he said, sitting down next to her. They worked together, shared ideas and helped each other. In the quiet space of the office, they felt a special closeness. When the work was done, Elara felt a wave of fatigue wash over her. She leaned back in her chair and closed her eyes. Julian looked at her, his eyes filled with love. He reached out and gently stroked her hair, causing her to open her eyes. They looked at each other, their eyes filled with passion. Julian gently leaned down and kissed her passionately and intensely. The storm of emotions between them was so strong that they forgot everything around them. The kiss was long, sweet, and intense. Elara felt a powerful stirring inside her, an urge to love and be loved. When the kiss ended, they looked at each other, their breathing still rapid. Elara, Julian said, his voice shaking. I love you. I love you too, Julian, Elara said, tears of happiness welling up in her eyes. They hugged each other tightly, feeling a sense of peace and happiness fill their hearts. They knew that they had found their true love. That night, they left the office together, hand in hand. The rain had stopped, the sky was full of stars. They walked down the empty street, sharing their dreams and hopes. You know, Elara, Julian said, looking at her with fond eyes. You changed my life. You too, Julian, Elara said, smiling. You showed me that love still exists. In the following days, Elara and Julian made their relationship public. They went to work together, had lunch together, and went for walks together. They did not hesitate to show their affection for each other, making everyone around them feel admiration. One sunny afternoon, Julian and Elara walked under a large tree, looking at each other with loving eyes. Julian gently caressed Elara's face, then leaned down to give her a sweet kiss. Do you want to come home? He asked, his voice a whisper. I want to introduce you to Alex. Elara nodded, feeling a sense of excitement and anticipation. She knew this was an important step in their relationship. Together they arrived at Julian's house, a warm and cheerful house. Alex was waiting for them in the living room, looking a little nervous. Hello, Alex, Elara said, smiling. Uncle Julian has told me a lot about you. Alex looked at her, his eyes filled with doubt. But when Elara smiled at him, he felt a warmth and friendliness. Hello, Alex said, his voice a little shy. Julian put his arm around Alex's shoulders, smiling at the boy. Alex, this is Elara, he said. She's Dad's girlfriend. Alex opened his eyes wide, looking at Elara. The boy felt a sense of joy and hope. And of course he respected his son very much. Before Julian introduced him to Alex, he had told the boy about Elara many times. So the boy was very eager to meet her. Hello, the boy said, smiling brightly. Nice to meet you. Elara felt a surge of emotion. She knew she had made the right decision. Alex also gradually accepted Elara. He enjoyed listening to her stories and making delicious cakes. He felt like he had found a second mother, a mother who loved and cared for him. As for Lily, she was a bit shy at first, but after many visits to Julian's house and playing with Alex, she gradually adapted to her new brother. The bursts of laughter and small adventures in Julian's garden made Lily feel closer to Alex. Gradually, they became companions, together exploring the world around them and creating a sweet friendship. One evening, Julian took Elara, Alex and Lily to a large park. They played together, frolicking in the golden sunlight shining from the leaves. Elara, with a radiant smile, kept posing with Alex and Lily, their close friends who always went together. As the night fell, the sky gradually sparkled with stars. Julian suddenly knelt down in front of Elara and proposed to her. He held a sparkling diamond ring in his hand, the light from it reflecting brightly in the night. Alex and Lily stood beside him, their eyes filled with joy and happiness. Will you marry me? He said, his voice trembling with emotion. Elara was so surprised, she couldn't help but feel emotional. Her mouth smiled slightly through her tears. She nodded gently and held out her hand for Julian to put the ring on her. They had a warm and happy wedding, witnessed by family and friends. Lily was the little bridesmaid. She wore a pure white dress and held a small bouquet of flowers. The wedding took place on a beautiful sunny day, in a small garden by the Sea of Havenwood. The space was filled with fresh flowers and melodious music. Elara walked down the aisle, hand in hand with Lily, her eyes shining with happiness. Julian stood waiting for her at the end of the aisle, his eyes filled with love and respect. In that sacred moment, Elara felt like her life had turned a new page. She remembered the hardships and challenges she had gone through, the pain and loss. But she also remembered the warm and sweet moments, the people who loved and helped her. When they exchanged vows, Elara and Julian made vows not only to each other, but also to Alex and Lily. They promised to love and care for each other, and to build a happy and lasting family together. On her wedding day, Elara felt like the happiest woman in the world. She had found her true love, a man who loved and cherished her. She had also found a perfect family, the family she had always dreamed of. Julian was also very happy. He had found the woman of his life, a beautiful, kind and loving woman. He had also found a wonderful mother for Alex, a mother who could make up for his loss. The story of Elara and Julian is a testament to the power of love and kindness. It shows that no matter who you are, what you have been through, or the past, you can still find happiness and faith in life. Live kindly to receive kindness. Thank you for listening to the story from beginning to end. Have a nice day. If you find this story meaningful, don't forget to share it with someone, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel to receive our interesting stories. See you in the next video.